I'm good. 4th grade.
We got Liberty. Do you want to fill in for that?
I'm good. I probably screwed it up.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I am Alan Bennett. So I have come out here to Chesapeake, give you a little bit of information about me. Been here, since 2016. The school board got me here. So because of the rezoning issues and the developing, and so here I am. I want to help out the community here, so here I am. But this is who we got to focus on tonight. So we have. Why am I? Sorry, I'm getting nervous here. I don't know why. We have Joey Gallant, Jennifer Barnes, Louis Padilla, Gene Waters, Levin Turner, and then Lou Burke.
There you go.
I should know because I have. I should know that. Sorry. But okay. Excellent. So what we're gonna do here is going to be very, as you can tell, very informal session tonight. Thank you very much for coming. So we'll just we can go around. They can say something, and afterwards, after everybody says something, you can ask questions.
Awesome. This meeting is now adjourned. No, wait, that's not what we say when we're starting it along. Okay, I call this meeting to order. There's a learning curve. There'll be a learning curve. My name is Joanne Gallant, and I have made the bold move to put my name on the ballot for mayor. I have 2 high school students that are in Grassfield High School, and got involved because of my real estate background and trying to stop a development. I came with facts, figures, and information to stop a development across from the school because I didn't want my kids rezoned. And as a result of that, people said, hey, who is this lady at these city council meetings? Where did she come from? We like her. And I was actually, politically scouted to some degree to run for this position. And I thought, you are crazy. You want me to be the mayor? You realize that I'm the lady with the hairdryer that was trying to melt the snow. I'm like, there's a lot of silly pictures. I have a great sense of humor. And then I realized the mayor made $25,000. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of headache for, running a big city. But I was inspired as other people had approached me and filled me in on things that really needed to be changed. I fully self-funded my campaign to prove that message matters over money. And my name's on the ballot for mayor, and I hope that you will consider voting. I think there's a big integrity factor in self-funding the campaign to prove that I'm not in this for the money, but I'm in here to do what's right for the city, make common sense decisions. That is my goal, to bring common sense back to politics. So, mom for mayor, I could be your mayor, but not your mom.
I love that. I love that. So my name is Jennifer Barnes, and I'm running for the 4-year seat on City Council. And I am so happy not to wear the monkey suit tonight because I feel the most comfortable in my cowboy boots, my t-shirt, and jeans. So this is awesome, awesome. So a little bit about me. I am a farmer, and I love living in rural Chesapeake. I love raising livestock and growing crops. I sell at the local farmers market, and nothing excites me more than to actually sit and talk to people that come out to this farmers market to explain where your food comes from, what real eggs really are, and just educate people on what I love most of all. And so basically, in a nutshell, I want to represent the agricultural and rural perspective in City Council. Currently, they're all city folk, and they have no idea what that means. And what happens when you don't have somebody representing what you love and what you're passionate about, then you get lots of development, concrete jungles, and things that aren't good for the city. So what I bring to the table is the agricultural and rural perspective. And I just want to share real quick. So yesterday I went to go buy me some new boots at Pungo Ridge, and there's a little diner right there in front of it. So I picked up this great newspaper. It's called the Princess Anne Independent News from Virginia Beach. And Virginia Beach really celebrates to the point that they have agricultural celebration days. They have one of the biggest farmers markets. They've just added 2 more streets to the farmers market. So it's now 5 streets that they closed down right down the street from the convention center for the farmers market. It brings in the most money for the city. But right now, the farmers are, as Heather Smith puts it, pissed because they are basically what it says. I'll just read it real quick. A move to end Virginia Beach's farmland preservation program shows a communication breakdown between government and rural communities. Well, hello! That's exactly what Chesapeake's doing. There's a breakdown between the government and the rural communities, which is 80% of Chesapeake. 80% of Chesapeake is zoned agriculture. And if there's not somebody in place that loves it and is passionate about it, then forget about it. It's not going to happen. So, my name is Jennifer Barnes. I'm known as Farmer Jennifer Barnes.
Tell me how many kids you have.
I got 6 kids. They all work on the farm, by the way. And they better come home safe because they got work to do. So I live it, I breathe it, I love it, and I want to represent it, the agricultural and rural perspective at City Council. My name is Jennifer Barnes.
I'm Lui Padilla. I am running for School Board of Chesapeake. And what inspired me to run is initially the play of Alexander Hamilton, and I know it sounds a bit silly, but it did get me involved into looking what is going on in our government, and not just on a federal level, but as well as a local level. And I gotta tell you, it is very, very messed up. There's a lot of under the table deals going on, and me being from Puerto Rico or New York, it gets me very fired up, and I can tell you that should I be in office, they will be hearing my mouth fighting for you a lot. Really, what I bring to the table as a 19-year-old student, right, getting out of high school, is new innovative ideas. I've been to multiple states. I've been in those school systems. I can bring those ideas back. None of that, but I'm already living up to my promises of saying that I would be going around to cities talking about collaboration, and throughout my campaign I have done that. I've been to Portsmouth, Newport News, and Norfolk, talking to incumbents and candidates about how we can work together to put pressure on the state to give us the money that by Constitution they should be giving us, that they aren't giving us. So City Council gives us that money, which ends up holding them up on things that they need to work on. So it's really unacceptable, and I'm trust that I will be doing something about it, whether I'm in office or not. So May 1st, I hope you give me a shot, and that's it.
Wow. Well, I'm Gene Waters. It's nice to follow these great people. One of the things that I've learned from being in these candidate forums that we do, running for City Council, a lot of times, and it's just like I was agree with Jennifer, is that it's nice to be here in a casual environment where we can meet people and talk to people, and we can shed all these special clothes that we have to wear for the candidate forums. One of the things I've done is it's been really a pleasure getting to know the candidates better. Everybody here, I know with Joanne and Jennifer and Louis and Levin and Mary Lou, they've been all great people. One thing I think that all of these people have in common, more than I think a lot of the other people, and I have to say the same thing for a couple other people probably that aren't here as well, is that some of these people, especially everybody here that's at the table, have strong integrity and strong character. I can't tell you as much how important it is. When I served on City Council from 1998 to 2002, it's been a while. And then I found out that what you have to do is have integrity. There's a lot of things that happen in closed session. There's a lot of things that happen out there, but if you know that there's a person, one person, just one person, with integrity that's in the middle of a room, then that whole environment changes. And having one of these people on council makes a tremendous difference to the future. And because it focuses the attention on doing the right thing. What's more than important than anything else, other than any of the dollars or the millions of dollars, and why I think everybody here that's at this table can honestly say for them, is that we care about Chesapeake. that there is a strong feeling that we want change because of the things that we've seen in city government, and we want changes to happen. So I could say that from getting to know them, I can say honestly that that's what they are. But I have served in the civic leagues associations for many, many years in my own local civic league, and have fought to get the right for citizens to be able to put a question on the ballot. It took a lot of work. The national referendum on the ballot, which took a lot of work with a lot of people. We're in an organization where the Chesapeake Council of Civic Organizations grew from 15 to 40 civic leagues. And the way we did that is we went to the planning commission and we camped out. We stayed there. When neighborhoods came forth with their issues and their concerns, we talked to them and said, listen, let's organize. Let's get together. Let's form a civic association. Become part of our central, citywide organization so we can make change. And we knew that when we got out there and we started making changes and we started working with things, that people knew that there was a way to move forward to get things done and accomplished. And I think right now we're at the turning point of Chesapeake. We have major development being pushed to southern Chesapeake. We have needs that aren't being met with our 176 portable classrooms, a lack of rec centers in our area, Fine Arts Center, having a decent place for our kids to graduate. That's only a few of the issues along with stormwater management and other things. So we really need some people with integrity that's willing to sit on council to make the right decisions. And that's why I decided to get back into the race. That's why I think that it's very important. So please vote for Gene Waters on May 1st.
All right, my name is Levin Turner. I'm running for the 4-year city council seat. I've grown up here in Chesapeake. Luckily, I'm a product of Chesapeake Public Schools. They've done me well. It's actually where I met my wife, Mandy. We now have 5 beautiful children, and we live in the southern area of Chesapeake. So I initially got involved in politics through my career as a firefighter. The city council at Portsmouth was balancing city budget off of vacancies in the fire department. And one of the things that you see across the nation is that local governments like to take shortcuts when it comes to funding of public safety. That's something I've identified, I believe, in Chesapeake, which is one of the reasons I want to run. They haven't added any additional resources in 18 years, and yet at the same time, our population has increased by 50,000 people. Over the years of 2010 to 2014, we had almost a 15% increase in call volume, and it's steadily climbing. So that is a major concern for me. That not only puts our citizens at risk, but the men and women that have sworn to protect our community, it puts them at risk as well. As Gene Waters said earlier, the 176 portables is another reason. When you talk about school safety, that's 10%, roughly 10% of our students that attend school outside of a secured structure every day. And you talk about soft targets and things like that. Ultimately, school safety would be a lot better if we were able to keep our children inside schools. It would keep our structures more hard and a hardened structure, because we'll be able to keep the doors locked. The $2 million that was allocated still hasn't been effective. They're still trying to formulate a plan. I bring opposing views and objective views. It's not to say that the $2 million allocation was wrong. It was done for the right reasons. However, there's no plan in place, so that money is still not being utilized to make our children any safer. That is why I support putting a law enforcement officer in every school. I believe the boots on the ground is always a good idea to have that immediate effect. So I stand for safety in that regards. I stand for our schools. And then community engagement. I believe one of the ways we focus on our community is in revitalization projects. Revitalization projects are huge for our city. South Norfolk is the reason Chesapeake is Chesapeake. And ultimately, we have forgotten a lot about. Residents of South Norfolk feel like they've been forgotten about. So I believe a strong push in economic development in places of South Norfolk and Western Branch would be huge for our city. So we're still growing, but it's not the residential sprawl that is causing a significant amount of funding to provide services that we're not gaining back from taxes, residential taxes. So to me, these are some of my key points of why I'm running. one of the other objective views I bring is healthcare. So right now, the city of Chesapeake has roughly 250,000 people with one hospital to service 250,000 people. Suffolk has 88,000 people. They have 2 standalone ERs and 1 hospital. I'd like to see every citizen in Chesapeake have equitable opportunity to obtain health care in their area. And that is significant when you talk about areas of South Norfolk not even having a pharmacy. So those are some other things that I really want to bring to local government, and I'm an independent candidate because I stand alone, and that is what I truly believe in. It takes an objective view to really represent all citizens for this city. So please vote for Levin Turner on May 1st. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Lou Burke, and thank you for coming out here tonight. I basically ditto. All of the above.
Ditto.
My speech is done. Thank you very much. No, I guess I should tell you a little bit about myself. I live in Greenbrier. I work at Deep Creek High School in Chesapeake. I'm the Latin teacher there. I got involved. I'm a wife and mom. Wonderful husband. I got involved in city politics originally through the backyard chicken movement. I'm most well known in Chesapeake for starting the group that got backyard hens legalized with certain restrictions in the backyards on all single-family residential lots. And it's not about the chickens, it's about what I learned doing that. What I learned was that we're more powerful. The little guy by herself or by himself really doesn't have much say in this city. Sometimes won't get the time of day. So we've got an issue of responsiveness in city council, and it's not just coming from me. I've talked to multiple residents and multiple small business owners that feel the same way. And then we're more powerful when we stand together on things. So I value grassroots democracy. And the third thing I learned was that I like to fight for the little guy. When people were saying, oh, it's okay to have fresh eggs in your yard when you're in a big lot and you can afford privacy fencing, but really people in areas like Port Lock and South Norfolk, no, I fought until even residents in Port Lock and South Norfolk could have fresh eggs and the benefits of that, and teaching their children where their food comes from, like Jennifer was saying earlier. And then another thing I wanted to mention was that like other candidates here, I am running a clean cash campaign as far as my campaign funding. And I want to encourage everybody to go to the Virginia Public Access Project, that is bpap.org, and to just see how much money, some of us don't have the big signs and the billboards and the ads on in the Virginia Pilot online and everything else. Well, guess what? You see that and you automatically think, oh, these people are popular. No, these people are well funded, and the people that are funding them, of course, I think, my opinion, get a bigger voice, right? Get a quicker ear than the average person, just trying to make a change in the city. So those are the reasons that I'm running. And then obviously security in the community, school security is important to all of us, as well as I also value equality, that everybody be treated fairly as well. So that's me, Mary Lou Burke, and if you want to see change in the city, and from talking to people, there's a lot of anger about all different things at all different levels, then we need to get out and vote on May 1st and get our friends and family out and get them to vote on May 1st and come on out Tuesday. We want to see you there at the polls. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we heard from the candidates. So very good information brought to the table. I just want to mention a few things here, and then we'll open up for questions. Fernwood Chase. Fernwood Chase is back on this on the table in the zoning commission. They're going to have a meeting. This isn't really widespread information here, but it's on Facebook. So April 30th, Oscar Smith High School, Great Bridge Boulevard, between Dominion and Battlefield. So Oscar Smith High School, Great Bridge Boulevard, April 30th, 7 p.m. if y'all are interested to see what's going on with Fernwood Chase. Because my concern is I live on the other side of the water from Fernwood Chase. So it could impact the people on the other side of the water. They're staying with the council, they raise it up, water comes down. So if y'all want to see what's going on there, information, Stop Developing Southern Chesapeake Facebook page. That's a good place to go to. Chesapeake Parents United, the Change Chesapeake for candidates here. Joanne, Jennifer, Change Chesapeake.
ChangeChesapeake.com started from a blog article to get people informed about issues that weren't well publicized in the news, and there's a Facebook page for that. So Change Chesapeake.
And people listening can text too, can't they, Joanne?
They can if you want to send a text with the word change to 88000. And that's change to 88000. ChangeChesapeake.com and some information as a reminder to vote.
And Shillelagh Commons, they're doing some Shillelagh Commons. I'm not sure about that, but that's coming up on the table too. So now we'll just open up for questions that y'all have.
Alan, you brought up the situation concerning the Fernwood Chase. Do you know who's chairing that meeting?
I think it's going to be the engineers of the project.
Okay. So they're trying to get feedback from the community, is that what I got?
It's going to be an informational meeting, so I guess they would ask questions. It's just they're doing a presentation and then preparing it to go up to the zoning board again.
I'd like to add to that because after I got involved and stopped the confluence development, 544 homes, with the help of everybody that came out and supported stopping that particular development, my phone started to ring, and one of the early phone calls that I took were from the residents of Fernwood Farms. He said, Joanne, we saw you on the news, we saw you at town hall meeting, we know you're a real estate agent, we know you're a licensed appraiser. Will you come talk to us about our development? And when I looked at Fernwood Farms and what they were trying to build there, the big thing that jumped out to me was the fact that in Chesapeake there's many areas that are considered high-risk flood areas. We all saw what happened in Houston. We all experienced some level of flooding here in Chesapeake with the last storm in particular of Hurricane Matthew and Jennifer's farmer friends.
Completely flooded.
Farmers friends, and just in that some regular rainstorms as well. So flooding is a big issue because we're a tidal community as well. Our groundwater table is high. And one of the impacts of that is what we pay for flood insurance. So when I met with the people at Fernwood Farms, one of the things that jumped out at me was, several houses in the surrounding area, the city of Chesapeake had applied for grants from FEMA to buy those houses due to repeat flooding issues and completely demolish the houses and restore them to green space. And if you're doing that, that's because flooding is an issue. And if we're going to build within that proximity, then that is a problem that we've used federal money to go ahead and destroy those homes. And now we want to build a high-density development with a lot of concrete that's going to cause more flooding issues. That's just not a common-sense decision. In addition to that issue, homeowners that are in high-risk flood areas are required by their mortgage companies to pay for flood insurance. And that's very expensive. It adds quite a bit to your mortgage payment. And right now, Chesapeake has a community rating of, I believe it's an 8. It's either a 7 or an 8. And what that does is it keeps our homeowners that do have to buy flood insurance, it keeps their premiums at a lower rate. However, if we continue to build in these areas, we're jeopardizing the city's community rating system for the flooding insurance. And that would increase flooding policies, flood insurance policies for all homeowners in Chesapeake. So we need to be, when we talk about development, sometimes the impression is, oh, they don't want any development. That's not accurate. We want to make smart, responsible decisions. We want to make sure our schools can handle it. We want to make sure we're not jeopardizing other homeowners and damaging property values in other neighborhoods. We want to make sure we're not flooding out the other people as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
I do want to quick piggyback on that. So when we moved here, we live on Head of River Road. rainy season, when we call our insurance, they say, no, you have ditches, and you have this and you that, you don't flood, so you don't apply for flood insurance. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. It becomes a river, it becomes a lake. I mean, literally, I have pictures of my kids swimming in my back acreage when it rained the last time, literally out there diving in and swimming. And the entire road behind us, all around us, floods. There's a $9 million budget for our ditches and storm drains. $9 million for what? They mow? Does it cost $9 million to mow? I don't think so. I don't think so. And for $9 million, and plus we pay $43 twice a year for them to mow on top of the $9 million, and they also have grants on top of that to pay for that. Our ditches should be made of gold. Gold. There should be no issues, yet we have issues. We have major.
Budgeting correctly? Do you think that might be an issue?
It's probably not on the same. It's not probably not on the right schedule for maintenance either.
Well, in my ditches, all they ever do is mow them, and they don't clean them out.
Yeah.
So the ditch is supposed to be, if you go online and look at, there's 30-something things that $43 twice a year is supposed to pay for. It includes a depth. Your ditches are supposed to be a certain depth.
2 to 1 is the grade, and it's 30 feet minimum.
Yeah.
So
They mow it and they leave the grass and the cattails and everything there, which then each year it just makes it bigger and bigger. And I love our garbage people, but you never get all the garbage. And I've got to jump into the ditch and get it all out. So that adds to the piling up of the ditches and the flooding. If Virginia Beach can do it, why can't we keep our ditches at appropriate levels?
it's called having the money to do it, because the budget doesn't have it because, I'm sorry, we have so much. I'm sorry, I'm not running.
Please,
I'm not
jump
running. Keep in mind that they just passed a capital improvement package, the city, and if you actually looked at it, 40% of the money that the city spends comes from grants and subsidies from the federal and state government. Now, I'm sure that you on a personal budget don't get your money from somewhere else other than what you make. So, and then if you're lucky you would win the lottery, but they don't win the lottery, they just use the subsidies. And then the other story that goes with that, when you actually take a look at the big picture, is they don't have enough money afterwards to do all the projects they want to do. So if you talk or has seen what Roland Davis had mentioned, is that the people, quote unquote, would like us to get grants or loans for that money. So that means you have to pay interest on that money for those other projects. They've been doing this literally for almost 35 years, if you actually look at the budget and the way it's worked. So how much do you think, off the top of your head, percentage-wise, that the city still owes for those debts? And we still have to pay those. And yet the federal government, who is already in debt, as well as the state, still has to worry about their debt. So one debt just climbs on top of the other. City, state, and federal. And then we as people complain and politicians complain because our national debt is high. We just don't have it. So
There are creative ways. You know, for example, if you're a mayor and you're running a self-funded campaign, you don't actually buy brochures. You tell people to text the word mayor to 88000. So there's definitely creative ways that can be saved on money as well, and having been a property manager.
it's how you spend it. And most of our money is actually spent on our infrastructure. but our infrastructure is spread so wide because the area within Chesapeake is so large. We're the third largest city in the Commonwealth by volume. And because of that, our infrastructure is spread out that far. And because of that, we have to spend extra money in order to maintain our infrastructure.
And then that's the issue with the housing development crisis as well. You know, every time we add a new house or a new neighborhood, the thought process is that the tax dollars help the city. But in actuality, that adds students that will be there for the long term. It adds other costs that are required from the city. So every time you add a new house to the community, you add a cost for the city. The tax dollars
And people don't realize that.
Right. And even in an article that West had quoted when asked, why do you vote yes on everything, on every single development, even when the city, when the city, the planning commission, and staff recommend denial, his answer was, oh, it brings tax dollars for the school. But it doesn't really, because it brings more students for the school, it overcrowds our classrooms, and it ends up costing the city.
Gene can attest to this because he was on city council. He knows how it works to some extent. When city council approves a project, such as redevelopment or a new development, it literally costs the city millions of dollars just to get things going. Not to mention the fact of what it's going to take to put that infrastructure in place for that neighborhood. And yes, the contractor or the developer says, we'll put in your roads for you, we'll put in all your utilities for you, but it's up to you. It's your responsibility as a city. After it's done with, you become responsible for the maintenance and care of that infrastructure. That's the cost.
I wanted to address a couple things that you were talking about. I think it's important, especially when it comes to rezonings and issues.
Okay.
What we're talking about is the impact to development. I know with every school children, every child that's actually placed in a is affected by directly a rezoning, costs the city an average of $11,000 to $12,000 per student.
Yep. So
with property tax revenue, a lot of people don't understand that the revenue generated from the housing development itself, whether it's condos, apartments, or single-family homes, or large apartment complexes, you're going to have an impact, and that impact information is always tied to every application that every city council member sees as well. Along with that is the impact that's provided to other off-site development issues that's directly related to that. We have Byam's Code, which is coming up. You have almost 600 additional people being added based on a rezoning effort that was taken place 8 years ago.
Right.
In addition to that, you have a number of already existingly zoned land that's sitting there empty that will take effect, and it's always part of the application. So what the city council hasn't done a good job of is actually planning development or planning focus. And I think what's disturbing to most people is that if you've seen overcrowded roads and overcrowded schools, if you have all this development being approved, but you don't actually plan for the infrastructure improvements that you can based on managed growth. And managed growth is the focus of it's a conservative approach, but actually making sure that we have the revenue sources to pay for that without having to raise taxes, which is not a good thing. And so that's one of the things. Speaking about development, I want to add one thing that I've put out there on my website, GeneForCouncil.com, and it talks about a notification system. And I've been pushing notification ever since I remember, even when I was on council before. But you know, it's a good thing when other council members provide information, you know, to the citizens. That's one. But at the same time, there's a trust level that people have. Because that city council member that's putting information out about the city is slanting the information for their own political gain. So what you do is say, not necessarily Gene provide a separate system or someone else provide information source, but have the city provide an information source. So let me give you one example. I think it's important. when I'm steering committee head to Oak Brook communities over around the Greenbrier Christian Academy area with Oak Brook Meadows, Greystone, Clearfield, and those communities, about 10 communities. We have a 200-acre parcel that's across the road from Greenbrier Christian Academy at Kentsville and Clearfield Avenue, and that with a Hodges property. But we had a developer come forward and actually wanted to put 386 apartments and condos, and additional with a commercial site right there at the corner. The bad thing about that, it was already recommended use as office and institutional to expand the Oak Brook Business and Technology Park, which was good for jobs, and it's one of the few 200-acre parcels that's still there that is north of the waterway. It has decent access. You provide an access off the bypass to that additional 200 acres for that office development. It's a great office development. But what we found out what happened, by the time the developer came to us and said, oh, we'd like to have a community meeting, and here's the red sign that we're putting up about, and the city's notifying you. Well, guess what? We did a Freedom of Information Act request, and we found out the developer already had approval from the planning department director saying that it was 386 apartments and condos were compatible to office and institution. It's hard to believe, but somehow that was compatible. In addition to that, they had already had 5 votes lined up on council. So when we got into the picture, we had little knowledge or whatever, and we had to work very hard. We organized, got 10 communities together, and thank the Lord that we were able to stop. And that 200 acres, when you go by there now, was still open in green space, and hopefully it will expand to office park. We had to fight our city to do the right thing. That's sad. That's the number one thing. The second thing is that we weren't notified ahead of time. Transparency was missing in this whole process. So why not have a notification system that the planning department sends out, puts out, and that you, the citizen, can go online to the internet and you can sign up and say, I want to know within a 3-mile radius any change that happens in the city. And when any applicant, anyone comes before the planning director or the city manager and has a private meeting or whatever they do, then they actually have to provide that information so that the citizens, you actually put it tied to an application or anything that happens to you, and then you can see all that information and you are directly notified on your phone or your app that this information is coming. I'd like to see that notification system. So that would be a great way to find out information. So I've said enough for that, so I'll pass on.
Can I piggyback on that? Joanne Gallant and I were at a meeting last night of the Georgetown Civic League, the Sunrise Hill Civic League, and help me with the third one, the Holly Ridge Civic League. And that was the biggest complaint, that the Southside Connector of the Atlantic Coastal Pipeline, which is an offshoot of the Atlantic Coastal Pipeline, which is frack gas coming from West Virginia. And that was their biggest complaint, was that there was not enough communication with them. These pipelines, 24-inch pipelines, are coming in right behind their houses. The pipelines were deemed to be too dangerous to be near nearby railroad crossings, so the pipelines were shifted to be closer to their homes, where their kids walk to work, walk to school, and then they've been consistently told by City Council that there is no real recourse. City Council has nothing to do with it. And they've been given the runaround. You know, they've been very organized. They've been going to state, federal officials, and they keep getting told, you need to take this back to City Council. And so they don't know what to do. But their biggest concern is that City Council knew about this much earlier and really never said much to them or asked for their input. And they feel like they've been run over.
And important, as you said, another thing to talk about is a gas pipeline that's 24, I understand, maybe up to 36 inches. So we're talking about a compressed line here.
It can blow up.
I understand what she's talking about.
Yeah, I need to spell this out. It can blow up. Thank you.
The most thing that I was impressed with guys, it's very difficult to get a group of people involved and organized. Everybody's lives are busy. gone to the state, they've gone to the federal, they've gone to environmental committees, and they're getting the runaround. And the answer is here at home. It's here in Chesapeake. And I will agree with the notification as well. You know, with the development that I first got involved in with the city, only the abutting property owners have received a notice, and it sounded like a party. It said, you know, come to this meeting to learn about PUD number, plat number, blah, blah, blah. That was it. One sentence. It didn't say, hey, we want to build 544 homes behind you. Do you mind? No. It was like, come to PUD number, plat number meeting. And I was like, and I'm in real estate, and I'm thinking, what? You know, I'm busy. I'm a mom. I have kids. I couldn't stop and go. Not necessarily. Our community needs to be informed. They need their input and engagement when these larger developments are going to come and affect them. One of the examples that I had used at City Council was a neighborhood, Berkshire Estates, and that neighborhood did great during our recession here in Chesapeake. However, what they did in 2015 is they literally surrounded and attacked the neighborhood. Berkshire Estates got Hickory Woods, Canberry Manor, and Viridian Reserve right behind it, all built between 2015 and 2017. It went from having private backyards with nobody behind them, and I went to go show a house there, and I stood on somebody's back deck, and I looked from right to left, and I counted from one spot on this person's deck. These are $500,000–$600,000 homes, and I could see 20 homes from one spot in their backyard. The property values plummeted. You know, you go from having a private backyard and a brick home to that. And again, you know, if these homeowners had known what was going to happen, the average time to sell a house in Chesapeake at that time, when I was there last summer, was about 60 to 65 days on average. These houses were on the market for 2 years and they were not moving. They were selling below assessed values. There were agent bonuses. Come show the house. The listings would be on the market for 6 months. They would expire and they would relist the properties under second MLS number. So the statistics that the MLS generates were even off because it came up as 2 different listings, 2 different MLS numbers. So when I sat down to try to crunch the numbers, I was literally having to match up MLS numbers and addresses so I could say, okay, it listed 365 days under this MLS number and an additional 100 days here. And when I did that, I realized our current mayor, Mayor West, had a listing for 725 days, and I was yelling at the city council and I was got hauled out by the police as my time ended up, and I'm like, you know there's a problem with this listing on there for 2 years. So, I mean, those things, but if the homeowners had known, their property values dropped over $100,000 for that. And in addition to that, when we talk about the rezoning issue, here's a huge bone of contention for me. Again, as a real estate industry expert, I am a real estate agent, I am a licensed appraiser, I have done property management, I am a Circle of Excellence agent, I am your boots on your ground, I am your local real estate expert. And what it is that my issue is that I pointed out a neighborhood that was a new construction neighborhood, and there's a valuation difference. People will pay more to be in certain school districts, and there's a valuation difference between different neighborhoods. So there was one neighborhood in particular, Old Mill Run. What I had pointed out to City Council there was that they had it zoned for Deep Creek High School, they moved it to Brassfield High School, and then they moved it back to Deep Creek High School. The problem in doing that in such a short period of time, especially with a new construction neighborhood, is that there's no equity for those homeowners. We're a high military population community. People will finance their houses with VA loans, which are 100% financed loans. So if we're going to build a new construction community, we better know where those homeowners are going to be, what school district, for at least 5 years. Because what we're doing is we're making the same mistakes over and over again. I wrote to the school board members in August this year, long before the rezoning issue came up, and I said, I'm a licensed appraiser, I'm a real estate expert. I'm concerned about the decision you're making. I will offer you my services for free. No budget issue whatsoever. Let me give you my opinion on what you're thinking about rezoning, so we can study and see if these impacts can handle the rezoning impact. I received a courtesy email back, thank you for your concern, from Mr. Harry Murphy. I received a phone call from Mr. Thomas Mercier. We had a longer discussion about that, but at no point did anybody take me up on my services. I cautioned against rezoning new construction neighborhoods, and when we went through this process in October or November of last year, all of a sudden, surprise option 4 was thrown into the mix at the last table. It included those 3 new construction neighborhoods that I just mentioned: Meridian Reserve, Hanbury Woods, Hanbury Manor. Same issue we're going to have again. We just made a very economical, financial decision that's going to impact our community because the military is constantly on the move. They don't have established equity. We moved them from Hickory to Great Bridge. There is a dollar value difference there. Those people just bought their home between 2015 and 2018, and now they don't have established equity, and we moved them again. We're making the same mistakes over and over again with the same people. What I'm most thrilled about in being here today is that there are good people that put their names in the hat to run for city council, to run for school board, to run for mayor, that are, taking a chance and saying, I want to do what's right for this city. To me, that is inspiring because there's nothing worse than apathy. You go to the ballot and there's only one name there to check. What's motivating you to go out there and vote for anybody? There are good people here, but not everybody realizes that our city elections are in May. People think this is the primary and they're going to vote for us in November. It's not the case. This is it. This is it.
Plus the expense of $100,000 to have a separate election in May. And who is it benefit?
Well, I just want to point out, I've been saying this nonstop, I think rezoning is poor planning. That's what it equals. If you had made those plans ahead of time before you put that new development in, you wouldn't have to rezone. So again, rezoning equals poor planning. And I like to say what I see on my backyard. I see corn, wheat, soy. Back behind that, that's 80 acres. Behind that is a horse farm and a cattle farm. And in front of me is a horse farm, a sheep farm, and an alpaca farm. That's what I see day in, day out. That's what I smell, and I love it. That's what the babies I see that are all being born, guess what? I get to see all of them. I love it. I want to represent it, period. We want to take some new questions?
Here's my question. And it's something that concerned me way before Stop Developing. I had wrote a personal email to City Council after I realized they're developing everything and I can't get to work in a timely fashion. So I work downtown Norfolk. I have to take the 168 commute. But here's the deal. They're only selling Hickory High School and Great Bridge. That's it. That's all they're bringing to the table is we've got great schools. But at the end of the day, these schools are full now. In fact, they're over full, as Jeannie and I were talking. What's next? So now they're looking at taking established communities and moving them somewhere else. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't have kids, and I don't want to be sliding Greenbrier Middle School, but if you move my house there, I am going to lose $20,000 to $30,000. Right off the top, I'm going to lose. No matter how I feel about anything, that's money. And so these schools are now full. And they're and they're approving more development. So I know what's going to happen, and now they're looking at, well, let's update Centerville Bridge, and I can see the handwriting on the wall. We replace Centerville Bridge. Okay, now it's good enough you can cross over. But it just infuriates me that we're still pushing these developments for Hickory and Great Bridge. Don't you want your kids to go to school there? And that's why we bought where we did, even not having kids, because we know they're great communities. So that's my comment.
I want to say some things to that. I do teach in the Chesapeake school system, and so I'm answering for myself, not for the school system. I have to make that clear. This is my opinion. But for one thing, I think we do need, as a community, to sell schools outside of those outside of Hickory and Great Bridge. For example, I teach at Deep Creek High School, and I tell parents that Deep Creek High School is a hidden diamond. You know, if we did a better job of letting people know how good all our schools are, then maybe there would be less anxiety about trying to improve the capacity of some of the schools that we have. The other thing that it brought to mind, and I don't know what other people's experiences were, but I went to interview with the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce, and the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce seems to represent some big money interest and has endorsed quite a few of our people in this city council race, including most, if not all, the incumbents. I don't quite have the list of names. And then two newcomers, Susan Vitale and Matt Hamill. And what they told me, I don't know, they were individual interviews, so I don't know what they said to the other candidates. But what they told me resonates with what you just said and made me lose sleep. I tossed and turned for a couple of nights. One thing they said they wanted was an increase in residential property taxes in order to pay for improved roads, schools, bridges, infrastructure. The next thing they told me is that they wanted more schools, newer schools to the south of town. So that is apparently their answer to the crowding problem, not redistricting and using the capacity that we have before we build new and protecting taxpayers' dollars, but more to the south, where I assume a lot of people with investments are making a lot of money. And then that's two things. And then the third thing they told me is that they're pushing really strongly for the city to approve the potential Frank T. Williams, thank you. The Frank T. Williams property, which is on the Chesapeake, North Carolina border, and 4,000 acres for a big commercial industrial park. Well, the cost of the water in the sewer, I mean, it sounds good in theory, bring in big business, it's a unique opportunity, but the cost of the water in the sewer alone to go down there, if they bring in data centers in that particular area, huge amounts of power would be required down there. And for what? You know, we need to redevelop in areas like Indian River, Deep Creek, South Norfolk, you know, areas, Western Branch, areas that need redevelopment. We need to look at what they call our brownfields, not tax all of us to send money down to the southern portion of the city to give people in North Carolina jobs who are going to come up for it, and in order to make some investors who bought a bunch of cheap property potentially wealthy. That's my opinion. That was the impression I got. I did lose sleep over it, and do realize that they have a very powerful endorsement.
So, one of the things you said resonated with me. You know how we wouldn't be here if we didn't stand for something of stopping development. But so it's not just here though. Ultimately, I make the same commute you do. I go to Portsmouth every day from southern Chesapeake, and it's not just here. We've got to prepare for what's being built south of us, because that's something that's going to have a incredible effect on us as well. So in that instance, you know, to a point, some of the footprint has already been set. Edinburgh is there. That's why I want to promote a standalone ER in southern Chesapeake. Number one, it creates jobs. Number two, it creates a lunch rush, you know, for the retail that's down there. You know, that kind of planning is the kind of things we need to talk about. And really, if we can recruit something like that, then we can really start planning for the expansion of 168, because it's going to need to happen. Because I think over the next 5 years, 1,700 homes are going to be built in Moy, and that's ultimately what I really want to try to focus on. And the capital improvement planning and things like that. Where I can say this: when I graduated high school in 2005, I went to work. I applied for all the fire departments, and I went to work for Chesapeake Public Schools. I took a concrete polisher out to Grassfield High School. They were polishing they were trying to polish concrete for the floor. And they're like, oh yeah, this is great. And the contractor said, this is what we're going to use for the Centerville, person that was there was saying this is the same concept we're going to use at the Centerville High School site, and that was in 2005. Centerville High School is still not being built, but if you go down Butt Station Road, they're building like there's no tomorrow. You know, so it's not just Southern Chesapeake that's developing. It's anywhere that you have property, they're going to try to develop, because it's a developmental state. You can't tell someone they can't build when it's zoned that way. And we haven't redone our zoning since 1969. It's been that way. So I really think we have to have an objective view of what the long-term impacts are going to be. I think we have to look at our proffers differently, the sustainability of things, and that to me I think is where really some of this hits home. For me, the school system's a huge deal. I brought it up the other day. Portable, I attended high school in 9th grade, still sits behind Hickory High School. You know, and that's an issue. You know, and don't get me wrong, with school board, it is a state funding issue, but ultimately, our city generates revenue because of our school system. Because you can take, let's name a builder. I don't want to name any builder, but name a builder. They build up. Bob the Builder builds in Chesapeake. They take that same floor plan, they build that in Suffolk, and I can tell you there's a substantial difference in property value. So, and what does that correlate with? I can tell you, you go on myschools.com or whatever that, on that real estate list, Suffolk schools are like 2, 3, and all of Chesapeake schools are 7 and above. You know, and so it's not just the, you know, Hickory area. It's everywhere. People want to educate their children. That's the #1 draw to Chesapeake. That's why we're a bedroom community that we are. And so, to me, I think that's the kind of planning we should have seen the writing on the wall years ago. We've got a great school system. We need to invest in it to continue that progress. But we also have a responsibility to plan for the fact that people are going to want their kids educated in Chesapeake. And ultimately, you know, it just comes down to what we said, the planning aspect of this, and it does take economic development. It does, but it's got to be smart economic development that's already in place. Edinburgh, I mean, we've got a rotating door of retail in Edinburgh. You know, people do retail differently. People do. I can go right here and I can probably have a soda delivered in like 20 minutes. You know, I mean, Amazon is changing retail. So the way we do the strip malls, you know, and we approve strip mall after strip mall after strip mall, and then wonder why. I mean, ultimately, it's not the city's responsibility to be concerned with the end users, but it displays a lack of shopping confidence when you go to somewhere and you see empty store, empty store, empty store. You know, and so it's a feel. You really have to think about, and I think that's one of the things I've been an adamant push for is, as the youngest candidate, I want to bring a different perspective.
Thanks for pointing that out.
You know, but that's I have a vested concern, and I've been here since I was a wee boy.
Who's here for the school board this weekend?
He's actually younger than me.
So, I do gotta, sadly something's come up and I do gotta leave, but I do want to add, I do agree with a lot of what Levin has said. Right now, from the feel of it, it feels like our city council is just frantically throwing darts, hoping they hit something that they can really brag about. And to me, that makes no sense. It's totally unacceptable. It's a burden on the people. And as you can see, it's come to the point to where now we're in a historical election. We're going to pick the way our city goes. So
I'm excited. Aren't you excited? There are so many good people there.
yes, this is really exciting.
And such a historic opportunity to make a change. The mayor contested,
It's a super majority.
Yeah.
6 cities council seats contested, and then 5 school board seats contested. If people want to see change in this city, this is the election. We need to turn out and make it.
It's a super majority.
I wanted to address, I think, something that a lot of the citizens are aware of what's actually happening, and I think it's really critical with a lot of the issues that we just talked about. I'm going to give a simple analysis. If you had like a 3-bedroom house with 100 square feet, and you happen to have 6 families in your relatives that said, well, I'd love to come to your house. I want to come to your house. And I said, okay. So you said, sure, come to my house. So someone sleeps in the shed. Someone sleeps in the garage. Someone actually doing something else. So, and then And you would say, well, why in the world would you ever do that? Well, that's exactly what Chesapeake does. So if you've expanded, then you had like you're lacking the infrastructure that you need. When you have 5 recreational centers that are 40 years old and they're 3 times less than Virginia Beach has the equivalent to three times the size of that to a rec center that provides actual access for senior citizens rooms. They actually have daycare centers in each one of those. They have water sports. They're allowing high school kids to compete in other areas when it comes to that. So, and then in addition to that, there's fine arts center locations and other things like that. And then in addition to that, there's nowhere for our kids to actually graduate in the city of Chesapeake. You have to go to downtown Norfolk at the Ted Consul Center. We don't have a place to actually, people and businesses that actually come in here and actually stay here at any conference center location or anything large enough to actually have a venue to attract people. There's not any multimodal transportation that get us from here all the way down to the naval base with high-speed rail, which is a great opportunity for South Norfolk being a hub location. All of those things, saying that, is that everybody's being put in this small house, and we are big, we're not expanding, we're not doing the things we need to do, and now, in addition to that, City Council has changed the comprehensive land use plan to our 35 plan to actually put 7,000 additional homes south of the Dominion border, and actually supported that in every one of the existing council members that ran for re-election running now actually supported that plan. In addition to that, 700 additional acres around Edinburgh for houses. That's right. So all of those things, in addition to that, what we're talking about with Mary Lou, with the Frank T. Williams property, with 4,000 acres, the utilities director has said that it will cost $1 billion to put a 36-inch water main down to the Frank T. Williams property, and then have a loop that hits from that all the way over to the treatment plant. And when they do that, they're opening up all that territory, and all these developers that are spending all this money to help these candidates get elected are waiting in line to come forward and bring this development. So the citizens don't realize that we have a great opportunity to elect people that's going to say no. Let's fix existing infrastructure first. Let's pick up the quality of life of the citizens of this city to make that the highest priority. People with principles, people what you see. I mean, it's like, look at the money, follow the money. When you follow the money, you find out why there is a focus on bringing development to your neighborhood. And I love this background.
I know.
I feel like I'm working hard and I feel like we should wrap this.
I wanted to say something real quick, and I'm pretty loud, so you might be able to hear me. So, majority of, okay, all this, I do not have signs. My name is Jennifer Barnes. I have a t-shirt and has buttons. I do not have signs for 2 reasons. Number 1, they aggravate me. They're everywhere, and they aggravate me. And I'm not putting my name on something that makes people angry. Number 2, they cost a lot of money. A lot of money. The smaller signs, about 20 of those, are anywhere between $150 to $200. The bigger signs start at about $100 a piece. And the big billboards that you see are in the thousands.
Now billboards, who's paying for that?
Well, that's my point. Those candidates are not paying for those big giant billboards. They're people that are giving them the money are. So let's really truly think about this. Unless some people that are self-funding themselves and paying for them, those people that did not self-fund themselves and they're standing up there at city council and a development comes aboard, who is whispering in their ear saying, hey, don't forget, I gave you thousands of dollars for that billboard. Hey, don't forget, I gave you money for signs. Hey, don't forget, I passed out stuff for you. Guess what? There is nobody that is going to be whispering in my ear. The only person I'm listening to is the citizens. Period. Not a single person whispers in my ear.
I gotta add to that, just because mathematically, I'm sorry, I can't carry it the other day. Mathematically, I figured out, I was shocked that our mayor makes $25,000. I thought, that's a lot of responsibility for $25,000. That's a lot of headaches. There's no way that this is a part-time position. But I know that going into it, and I was a stay-at-home parent at one point, so I know how to budget. But I figured it out. If we have 240,000 citizens in Chesapeake, and the mayor makes $25,000, that's about a dime per year that each citizen contributes. So let's say there's an issue in your neighborhood, and you get 20 of your neighbors to show up at city council and be a voice. And guess what? $2. That's what your voice is worth. 20 citizens are worth $2 of city council money. Now the problem is Virginia has the most lax campaign finance laws in the entire country. So you can use your campaign money for just about everything, as Mr. Bonnet does. Like a shopping spree. And you know, really the only regulations are how you close out that money. That is why self-funding just completely out of principle, out of the fact that a developer gives thousands and thousands of dollars to a candidate. So if I have 20 people and then I postpone the meeting 3 times, and then at the last one there's 15, it's like $1.50 worth of my tax dollars and my salary that are coming in. And it shouldn't be about money, it should be about doing what's right for the citizens. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay.
Alright, very good. So, we heard from the candidates. May 1st, polls will be open from 6 o'clock. What's it? 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, right? 7 to 7. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So,